listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you, and welcome to this Good Friday episode of The Briefing. We're in the lead up to one of the country's most important days, when Australia decides, is it out with the old and in with the new? Who'll head up our country for the next few years? The 2025 election campaign. And while election trails are often marked with moments that will be written into our history books, sometimes they're remembered for all the wrong reasons instead, for politicians being awkward or funny, to moments that are just plain old weird.
Bring them prices down. This is what we need, 'cause Albo's gotta leave. Albo's gotta leave.
So for today's episode of The Briefing, we take a look back at some of the quirkiest moments from Australia's election campaigns to date, as well as get an inside look into this year's election trail, right from the back seat of the Prime Minister's campaign bus. That's coming up in the second half of this ep. First though, here are the headlines straight from the Listener newsroom. It's Friday, the 18th of April.
Thanks, guys. Taking a look at the headlines for today, the opposition leader has come out clarifying he does believe in climate change. Now, this comes after Peter Dutton copped backlash for saying let scientists and others pass that judgment during a federal election leadership debate earlier this week. It comes after a report found that 1 in 23 properties are at high risk of climate change. Now, as the Easter long weekend ramps up, there are concerns domestic violence rates may rise. Crime stats show Easter is one of the most prevalent times for DV, only behind Christmas and New Year, as families and people who don't usually see each other spend time together. A reminder, support is available on 1800-RESPECT. Now, as Aussies take to the water this Easter, patrols have been increased at an Adelaide beach, and that's after an increase in great white shark sightings. SA police say a fixed-wing shark patrol is conducting routine flights at Aldinga Beach that will sound a siren when one is spotted. And over to the US, Donald Trump says he'll visit Italy after meeting with the country's PM, who said, "We hope to make the West great again."
That's it for today's headlines from the Listener newsroom. Next up is My Deep Dive, taking a look at some of the quirkiest election campaign moments from Australia's history books and some from this year's campaign trail. You can listen to that one up next.
Take me to the April sun in Cuba. Oh.
Delulu with no Salulu.
My corporate brings Jackie Lemmy to the yard and she's like, it's better than leaving.
Kookaburra?
Rotten, stinking extinction salmon. Extinction salmon.
Senator Hanson Young, remove the prop from the chamber.
Nice to chat to you. Nice to meet you too.
There's a prick.
Google it, mate. I mean...
Election campaigns. They offer us everything on the political scale, from major funding announcements, talk of policies, budgets and bottom lines, to accusations of lies and scare campaigns. And, well, viral meme gold as our politicians get out in the community and try to win over voters before they hit the ballot box. And whichever it is, those moments are often captured by the journos and camera crews following along on the election trail. For today's episode of The Briefing, we're speaking to one of the journalists on this year's campaign, News Corp federal political reporter Madura McCormack, whose chat with us, well, began with a bit of an election moment in itself while travelling on the PM's campaign bus. Firstly, just so we can point out, Madura, you're literally walking off the bus right now. Can you just explain what's just happened?
So apparently every election cycle or so, there's like a bus-related incident. And we are currently in our first bus-related incident of the campaign. So the bus, all of us on the bus made the bus too heavy. So it was scraping the bottom of this little ramp. And now we have to get off it. And the bus will go down and then we'll all get back on the bus. And then we'll be okay. And we'll be on our way.
I understand it's the bus following the PM who's having to get off, and where on earth have you just had to pull up on the side of the road?
I'm talking like some of like the biggest names in journalism, right? I don't know if people know, for example, like Channel 7's like Mark Riley, like he's on the bus. I'm talking like Sky News host Andrew Cornell. Ashley Raper from Channel 10, Josh Butler from The Guardian, like those kind of people that are perhaps some of them are known names within households, but if everyone's getting off the bus, all the cameramen, I'm talking like it's a full bus, but maybe like 40 people.
Oh my gosh.
It's the best.
Yes, you're not wrong. This is not the first bus-related campaign quirky thing to happen. I remember a viral video once about a whole conversation about who was on the bus and who's not on the bus a couple of years prior.
Prime Minister, you're on the bus tour.
Yeah.
Why are you flying?
Well, the bus is going all the way up to Rocky, and then it's and that's where it was always planning to go. I mean, it's a big state. I mean, these visits aren't about sitting on a bus. They're about actually engaging with small businesses and our supporters and the people of Queensland and listening to them.
Then why not the bus?
Because it gets me from A to B.
Will you be taking the bus to Rockhampton from here?
Yes. The bus will be going to Rockhampton from here. That's right. I've got to get there earlier than the bus tonight.
So you'll be flying to Rockhampton?
I'll get into Rockhampton tonight, and I've got a program tonight in Rockhampton. The bus can't get me there quick enough, so I've got to fly.
To Rockhampton, the bus will catch up with you, and then you'll fly on to Townsville?
I'll be flying on to Townsville, and your point is what?
I'm just interested in the point of the bus if you're not on it.
I am on it. I just got off it. I'm on the bus
not
right now.
Rockhampton or Townsville.
Yeah, well, it's a practical thing. I want to spend as much time on the ground with Queenslanders.
One of the journos speaking with ScoMo there is actually my former colleague Owen Jarks, and that video just went everywhere. So much great content coming out of election campaigns. But anyway, we'll get into that some more later. Madura, thank you so much for joining me on the briefing. Now, you've been covering federal politics for years now and several election campaigns. How interesting has this one been compared to previous ones, and what have been some of the standout parts of the campaign so far?
So I covered the 2022 election campaign. That was my first ever federal election campaign. And if that was your first one, I think it ruins all other campaigns for you because that was kind of an unhinged campaign. But I asked some of the veterans about what they think this campaign compares to other years. And they're saying it's up there with some of the most flaccid and boring campaigns that they've ever covered. But that is the reality.
What are we comparing it against when you say that 2022 was peak election campaign period? What on earth happened on that year to make it so interesting?
I mean, that was the election campaign where Scott Morrison decided to do every trade he could find under the sun, right? Like he washed someone's hair.
So what did you get up to on the weekend? Tell me about text messages.
Oh, that's right. And wasn't that also the year that he greeted a Korean woman in Mandarin?
Hello, how are you? How are you?
No. And then there was also that time that he flattened that kid while they were playing footy.
I can be a bit of a bulldozer.
You were there for that, weren't you, Madura?
I was at the furthest end of the field trying to do like a little social video, and I just feared something had happened. And I turned around and just started yelling, "Does anyone have video? Does anyone have video?" And there was video. And we obviously had a photographer there as well. It was just surreal.
I can only imagine. You must have known that you'd stumbled across viral internet gold at that point. Now, Anthony Albanese hasn't flattened any kids playing footy yet this election campaign, but I understand you've just had a press conference that was a bit quirky in itself. What happened?
What didn't happen at the press conference over here? We learned that he is pro-Vegemite and anti-Marmite.
I can confirm here today that I am pro-Vegemite. And indeed, I actually put a lot of Vegemite on my toast when I ate bread. So it's rather odd that they're letting Marmite in, which is rubbish, frankly.
I mean, none of the people. We've learned that he's very passionate about his local golf course in Marrickville.
Royal Marrickville Golf Course, par 62, 18 holes. Will be there for as long as I'm the local member and as long as there's a Labor-controlled local council.
And he also talked about how he goes from man to woman journalist at every press conference for equity reasons.
Oh.
And what's happened?
That is covering a lot of ground, everything from Marmite to equity. Now, it's sounding like there's some progress amid your transport dilemma. You're back on the bus, or have we sorted the travel issue, Madura?
I think we have. The bus is intact. We're on the bus.
As you continue your campaign trail, literally as we speak, you're on the PM's bus, and I wanted to ask what kind of stuff happens behind the scenes between the press conferences, after tools go down at the end of the day? Like, what is it, the stuff that goes on that the general public might not be privy to?
It's a lot of flying on planes. We tip-tap away on our laptops, or the TV journalists will be doing live crosses on the buses, that kind of stuff. That's during the day. I guess the stuff that perhaps why we come on the bus, the stuff that we hope to see behind the scenes, we can see how Albo is interacting behind the scenes. Is he grumpy? Like, is he in a good mood? Is there a spring in his step? And that kind of tells you a little bit about how the campaign is going, because federal election campaigns are a lot about strategy, but they're also about psychology. And I think a good example of that is we were on a boat back from Green Island off Cairns, heading back to the mainland. And Alba was just kind of having a chat with these two much younger, Gen Z journos. They were very excited about the fact that he used the phrase, Delulu is no Salulu.
Delulu with no Salulu.
And they were trying to get him to slide in more Gen Z slang, and they were giving him a lesson. And at some stage, the Sky News journal needed to do a live prop. And he was like, sorry, PM, I need to do a live testing. I'm like getting on my way. And the PM kind of didn't move. So the Sky News journal took his chance. It was like, you want to just come on a live cross with me? And the PM said, why not? That would be hilarious. And so they did that. And the Prime Minister, after being egged on by a couple of Gen Z journalists for a little bit, went on this Sky News cross and said, it's a vibe.
I am here with Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister. Some choppy waters near the Coral Sea, Prime Minister. You're going to keep that hat on when the wind is picked up here?
It's a vibe, Cam. It's a vibe here. And we're hoping that all of the journos on this visit can just keep it together.
Oh my gosh, it's a vibe.
So that kind of that really told me that he was quite comfortable in his skin. That's quite an unusual thing to happen. Like, politicians don't just go on a TV channel so spontaneously without any prep. So he had a bit of a string in his step. Yeah.
Yes, that's interesting. I can imagine that you really get that behind the scenes insight into like the pulse check, really, like how they're feeling. You can really see that. You'd be able to tell if they were flustered, for example.
Absolutely.
Now, we were talking about a few before. There have been a couple of pretty bizarre and quirky things to come out of this election campaign so far. We had Peter Dutton kick a footy into a cameraman.
Yes, what a shot.
We had Albo have a bit of a stumble and falling off the stage after a press conference. But did you hear this one?
Yeah, I know it's kind of mid to hear this white woman rap, but you know what's even worse? Putting up with Canberra's crap.
It's an independent candidate who dropped a whole rap. Have you listened to that at all?
I haven't heard this one. I've heard the Liberal Party diss rap.
Oh my gosh, that was my next question. This bad boy?
Bring them prices down. This is what we need. Cause Albo's gotta leave. Albo's gotta leave. Hey.
I just needed to play it because what on earth is going on in politics? And I feel like this is such a clear attempt at trying to win those like young voters. We've got like podcasters, influencers, and now we've got rap and it's a vibe. What is going on?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. I mean, Gen Z and millennial voters officially outnumber the boomers. So perhaps that has something to do with it. But that Liberal diss track is something to behold. We asked Albo this yesterday. We were like, is this going to be a Kendrick Lamar Drake situation?
Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to sell Black One.
Are we going to get a lazy diss track? And he kind of basically said no. And it's unfortunate because I think that's what we need. We need a right of reply.
Absolutely.
We have clarified a few facts about that diss track, by the way.
Oh, what have you found?
It's not AI. So that voice is a real voice, and it's not Kendrick. Those are the facts that we have ascertained.
It is not Kendrick. Okay, you heard it here first. It is not Kendrick. How disappointing. But that diss track is sure to become part of this year's election viral meme gold. And who knows, you might even become part of one yourself, Madura, enduring your own campaign bus saga today. Best of luck with the rest of the election campaign, and thank you so much for joining me on The Briefing.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
That was News Corp's federal political reporter Madura McCormack speaking with me there from one of the buses on this year's election campaign. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Briefing. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to share it with someone who you think might too, or you can share our social posts. Check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube, search Listener Newsroom. Don't forget, we'll be back in your feed tomorrow morning with our weekend ep of The Briefing. I'm Tara Cassidy. See you next time.